Great to be here today, and thank you for agreeing to speak to us. The topic we're going to discuss is that of GLP-1 drugs and the impact that they have, or are likely to have, on both the health side of the retail world, but also grocery and more broadly as they roll out. I'm particularly delighted that you've agreed to speak to us today because obviously you chair Holland Barrett, so a health and wellness retailer, but you've also run and had leadership positions in Walgreens and Boots over many, many years. But you're also a pharmacist, so you actually understand the science behind the drug, as well as have a really great insight into how it will affect retail moving forward. And I know you're passionate about this topic, so brilliant, and looking forward to the conversation. So maybe just let me kick off by asking you why you're so passionate about the topic. What is it about this drug and its likely impact to, particularly in the UK, but obviously more globally, that really sparks your interest and you see as a major trend as we go forward?
Yeah, thanks, Mar. And obviously, it's great to be given this opportunity to speak about it. For me, it's about the customer and this enormous unmet customer needs across the globe, including here in the UK, which is people want to actually take better care of themselves. It's called wellness, called prevention, many different words, but they don't know how to. Demystifying this has been quite a challenge for retailers and for professionals and for brands. But I think this particular class of drugs, which have got a good safety record, are clearly affecting the body in quite a different way to what people expected, and are going to become a mass drug like a statin or a penicillin all these years ago, could be a bit of an answer to help people to actually solve that unmet need at this time. So for me, it's about the customer, the expectations of the customer. And to maybe just put a bit of a Holland Barrett twist on it, if you don't mind. You know, our strategy, which we designed about 4 years ago, before I actually came, we call it adding quality years to life. So it's about health span, not lifespan. So when you have a trend breaker like this classification of drug, there's a ton of money going into it. And then you've got a vision and a purpose like we have here. Of course, it's perfect for Holland Barrett. So that's why I'm personally excited, both at an individual level and also at the corporate level for Holland Barrett.
No, it's a really exciting trend. And also, I think the thing that we perceive anyway is the opportunity, but possibly a threat for the retail industry. And you alluded to the opportunity for Holland Barrett, which I think you're spot on with. And especially given the recent news of Eli Lilly's successful phase 3 tablet form. So the makers of Mounjaro are now looking to move from a jab to a pill. And as this becomes easier to take and cheaper to take, the opportunity for this to roll out at a much faster rate and therefore have a much bigger impact on how customers buy food, how they look after their health becomes, much bigger, much quicker than perhaps many people are actually expecting or preparing for at the moment. So maybe just talk a bit about how you see this playing through into the UK market and how therefore Holland Barrett could take advantage of that.
Sure. You're absolutely 100% right. It's going to happen much faster than people expect. A couple of reasons for that, I think. First of all, this is a drug that has got a very good safety record. Despite what you read in the popular press, it's been out there for almost 20 years for a small indication in diabetes, and it's got a very long and good safety record. Secondly, if you look to America, where it is actually freely available, where through insurance, many people have been able to access this drug, the impact on consumer behaviour, particularly in food, is really clear already. And when you put the barriers in, which are the injectables, which put people off, maybe some of the popular press that put people off, and then maybe, of course, accessibility from a price point of view, particularly here in the UK. It's expensive, this drug today. If you take these barriers away or reduce them, then this will start to happen very quickly. And the reason it will happen quickly, I think, is because people are looking for it. They're looking for a different solution for their health. They're looking for something that acts differently. And the core difference of this drug compared to many other weight management drugs is it doesn't work on the stomach. It works on the brain pathway. It reduces addiction that we have all become used to through sugar and salt and all of the preservatives that are currently making us addicted to these, in my view, personal view, bad food.
And of course, the Labour government, when they first came into power, were talking about mandating Manjaro, I think it was, for the 3 million most obese members of the UK population. And of course, that's gone a bit quiet now. But the advent of a pill and therefore the reduction in cost of such a policy could well re-enliven that. And of course, it would be a big impact to helping the NHS cope with the pressures that it's under at the moment in the medium to long term. So this could be also encouraged by the government in the same way the insurance companies are doing it in the US. You could see the NHS going that way in the UK as well. So it moves from being what is at the moment a kind of the self-pay community, the sort of 500,000 people or so in the UK who are paying for this themselves, is as you say, because it is quite expensive, are generally the sort of higher end demographic. It could spread quite rapidly to perhaps the more poorer demographics where the levels of obesity are the highest and would be subject to the government policy I just mentioned. So the speed and the scale of this rollout, I think, is a really interesting factor, and it sort of brings us to where you see the opportunities and possibly threats for retailers. Now, you've spoken about Holland and Barrett, but maybe I'm sure there's more things that you can do in terms of the additional services, the personalization that you can provide to these customers going through a weight loss journey. But there's also bigger ramifications, isn't there, in terms of the broader grocery industry and in particular the supply base? I mean, what are your views on those, the nature of those opportunities for retail in general?
I think what's quite clear is that when people take this drug, they change behaviour, the addiction reduces. And that's been well demonstrated. There's loads of scientific papers out there and very, very clear. And also, if you look to America, you can see what types of foods that people consume less of. It's less snacks, sugary drinks, alcohol, and fast food. Very clear from the American data. Very, very clear. You put that together with the growing trends in grocery, which is about healthy. So if you look at Gen Z, for example, again, the evidence is they're looking to have fresher food. They're looking to have less additives. We're looking to eat less calories in a positive way, particularly Gen Zs, but it's right through all the generations, but particularly Gen Z. You put these trends together and you say, okay, what is the opportunity for Holland Barrett or grocery in general? And I think it's pretty clear that with private label moving to more of a owned brand ran a private label, your ability to develop, great product, not just in protein and vitamins supplements, but great tasting food that really is healthy is really clear to me. And we're always saying, we're doing a bit of it. It's our job, to be fair. We should be doing this because we are the small player with that focus. We have been for many years. But 3 years ago, we had a fantastic team who put over 1,000 products on the marketplace, including almost half own brand, which are available now, which are doing really well. I can tell you our sales in that area are meeting that trend. But others are following suit. Marks and Spencer I point to as well, in particular in doing it. And it's not about slapping that GLP-1 label on it, GLP-1 friendly or whatever it is. It's not about that false stuff. People read the labels. They want to know what's behind the labels. They want to know what's in the food they're eating. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be well developed and well presented and well understood. That's the opportunity, I think, for grocery.
And as you say, I think some grocers in the UK, yourselves at Holland Barrett, obviously well ahead of this trend, as you would expect to be in the health and wellness sector. But others perhaps are slightly slower to it and maybe not as advanced in thinking about it. And certainly our teams in the US are really seeing the impact, as you say, of changes in customer behaviour and the type of activities that's engendering in the particularly the grocery sector in the US is, number one, more advanced personalization, understanding of customer data. So spotting when people have changed their habits. So you kind of can tell when people are on the drug and therefore you offer different like products. You extend that as you've talked about into sort of services and how do you help customers on a journey of weight loss and going onto the drug, coming off the drug, but also the kind of more fundamental retail aspects. So the classic category management piece. So how do you use your space in store? What is your product hierarchy? What are your promotional strategies? And of course, how you deal with suppliers, because if you're an unhealthy snack food supplier, you're in trouble, right? Because your volumes are going to be under pressure. We've already seen a bow wave of M&A, which has been going on for a little while now, where the more unhealthy snack producers are starting to buy up the healthy brands, and you'd expect that to continue. But also those that do produce healthy food, as you say, the product development opportunities, there's huge opportunity to expand there. So I think a lot of the tools and techniques are those that perhaps already exist in retail, but to some extent, in some places more mature than others, for example. But there's a real, I think this is the real opportunity. So if you can get ahead of these trends, your opportunity to make the most out of this trend, which will impact a good proportion of the population over time, it feels like an enormous upside. But equally, if you're not in that place and you aren't taking advantage of customer data, category management techniques, then that feels like a huge threat. How do you see the types of things that retailers should be doing?
I think it's an accelerator of the trends that you've described very well. It really is, but it's a key accelerator because it's actually about not forced change, but natural change. Let me explain what I mean by natural change. There's a lot of talk about GLP-1s being overprescribed, badly prescribed, people who are already skinny, taking it to get even skinnier. That will all come out in the wash. I'm certain that the governance of the drug through the manufacturers and through the pharmacy supply chain, which I know very well, will be governed properly. I don't think that will be sorted. It's bound to be, it has to be, and it will be. Therefore, the opportunity is not to make money, if you like, out of the drug itself. That's someone else's job, in my view. It's to think about when people change behaviour, how do you make sure they stay changed? How do you give them the healthy alternatives that when they do their weekly shop or their top-up shopping or they're watching whatever sports they're watching Saturday afternoon, they're eating healthier snacks rather than sugary snacks? That's the opportunity, I think, for grocery specifically. Wraparound services, including, in that. So when you look at that piece, then the opportunities are huge because, whether, the traditional brands are going to struggle, I think. FMCG are going to struggle because I won't name any names, but you can imagine it's quite hard to convince someone something they've eaten for many, many years and been told the story is actually now healthy. So the opportunity, I think, for private label and grocery, for new brands coming through with really credible stories, incredible signs, is enormous. And I think there'll be a lot of money going into it as well because people will see the opportunity. There's not many situations in my career, and I've been around for 45 years, where the level of change is going to happen so quickly. And then you tie that into the whole conversation about technology and data. I heard one of my own colleagues who's done a great job at Tesco, Ken, speaking about helping customers understand the salt content through the club card and the receipt. I mean, that's the start of what I suspect will be done by the big grocers really trying to help their consumers to make healthier choices.
That's a really good point, actually. So the coincidence of the implication of GLP-1 for customer behaviour and where we are with data and the use of AI to help people really understand how they can manage their health journey really does make this a kind of now topic that in the next couple of years you would expect to see a significant shift in both customer behaviour and how retailers are taking advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's fascinating. And I guess if you think about winners and losers in this, I guess there are some natural ones, and you've alluded to some of these already. So winners, clearly, you would expect Holland Barrett to be a winner. I would fully endorse that. Health and wellness sector should be a major beneficiary of this. I guess the full line grocers that have got more space for innovation should, if they're on it, take advantage. You mentioned Tesco a moment ago. On the downside, where do you see the kind of losers of this? There's obviously snack food producers, but in terms of retail, where do you think that there is more of a threat here than an opportunity?
So winners and losers, I think people who are on this already, whether it be the data and technology changes, I think will be winners. I think people who've been thinking about, the trends that were there already, the trends through, Gen Z on healthy foods and will be winners. But I think the biggest winners will be the ones who really get ahead of the trend, and really understand where they want to position themselves, let's say 3 years from now. and take a bit of risk, whether it be in space or whether it be in digitalization, personalization, and really go after it. I think the thing that this is a strange thing to say, but I'll say it. The losers will be people who pay too much attention to some of the regulation. I'll just give you an example this week. I understand the government's going to put a tax on frothy, milky drinks in coffee shops. For me, that's fine. That's not the game. That's not, you pay your tax, don't worry about it. Think about how you change your drink.
Yeah, you're right. The regulation is one thing, but the product innovation that should be driven in response to this change, some of which will be accelerated by regulation, will be I guess, the key thing that comes out of it. The other thing that we were postulating, I guess, is it could change some of the channel dynamics, because where you've had for the last few years a real growth in convenience retail, so the grab and go, but a lot of the product that people buy, whether it's in petrol stations or in convenience stores on the high street, tends to be more confectionery, more snack based, and that could then have quite a big impact on the shopping missions within those convenience estates. And the same, I guess, goes for discounters, where you've got a sort of 2,500 SKU store, which is quite regimented. So there's some interesting challenges for those more limited range channels that they would need to consider, probably more dramatic changes in their product range than you would see, certainly percentage wise, in the bigger stores as well. So I guess from a Holland Barrett perspective in particular, what are the things that you're planning to do in terms of whether it's your core proposition or perhaps the wraparound services, where you see the biggest upside and the opportunity to help customers?
Yeah, in some areas we're trying to catch up, to be honest. For example, a loyalty program is not strong enough, so we have to catch up there and make the full use of data. We've got great technology. We've built in the last 4 years, a really great ecosystem self-built, so we can really move at pace now. So we'll have that solved, but we've got to make sure it works for consumers. I said we're ahead of the game on food, I believe, but we've got to keep on going, because we don't have the biggest resources. So we have to be very focused on the areas where we think we can bring innovation to the marketplace. And snacking for sure is one area where I believe and the team believe we can keep on going, and it's working already. I think the third area would be around the use of digital and marketplace, but a very focused digital marketplace, focused on areas where we can bring our expertise and knowledge to the party. And last but not least would be services. So we've got this really early MVP of an app called H&B and Me. And H&B is the first customer of Me. And what we've done is taken a wellness score, which is 40 million years of lifestyle behaviour from one of our partners, and changed the wellness score into biological age. It's pretty scientifically proven. We're plugging in people's trackers. We're plugging in people's blood tests. We're about to go to facial scanning, plugged in. So you get a pretty accurate read of how old you really are from your questions you answer and all that data we're putting into it. And then we can talk about solutions, which is behavioural change, sometimes products, often content, and often incentives to keep on driving that change. And it's been really interesting now, people to paying real attention to biological age. Really quite interesting. It's a theme from the West Coast of America. And of course, the clock's got to be accurate enough to be credible. And that's what we've been doing. So there's lots of things we're out there innovating in to see if we can figure out our way to the future. One thing we're clear on at this stage is that we don't want to make money out of the drug itself.
So, Ali, okay, thanks for the conversation. What would be the sort of key takeaways for the audience of retailers and consumer experts that I would hope would be watching this this video?
I would say look to America, number one. If you think I'm being over optimistic or whatever you think of my point of view in this, don't listen to me. Just look to the data in America and make your own view, because it's happening in America and therefore you can see the trends. I think secondly, get really clear on what you need to defend and what you need to build, because you'll have to defend for a while if you're over-reliant in certain product categories. So be clear on that and how you're going to defend, and then also how you're going to build. And the third thing is that accelerate the trend. This is really great for consumers in the UK and beyond. Maybe the decade or the 2 decades or the 3 decades, I don't know, of eating unhealthy food, it's actually reducing lifespan, and is certainly reducing what we call health span. I think today, men in the UK live more or less 20 years in an unhealthy state, on average. Same as tobacco changed the attitude towards this, I think this drug will, if grasped by the commercial markets, and eventually government will catch up, as always, could actually change that trend and actually add true quality years to life for people.
That's a great summary. And it's quite rare, I think, that you get an opportunity to help accelerate a trend that's good for customers, could be good for business, and clearly good for the NHS and our society in general, if that all plays through as you've described. Alex, thank you so much for speaking to me today and giving us your views on this vital topic. And I'm sure our viewers will enjoy and take away many of those things and act on them in their business. Thank you very much.
No problems, Matt. Thanks for the opportunity again. Thank you.